Welcome. Just a few housekeeping items before we jump in. The webinar is going to be recorded and shared following the event. So anybody that you need to send this on to, there'll be an email that follows up. Please do add any questions you have to the Q&A box. I'd love to answer those as we go through. If you want to save them to the end, of course, we can answer them at the end as well. But I will endeavour to answer those as I go through the webinar as well. So today we're talking about Timbra, which is CaptionHub's real-time localization suite. And in particular, what we're talking about is the in-room capability. So the way I think about Timbra is it has two broad categories of applicability. One is translating for broadcast. So that could be broadcast as we know it to large broadcasting apps or SVOD, or it could be your events that you're broadcasting around the world. So different types of broadcast, but essentially some form of video distribution over the internet. So that's number one. Number two is, well, what happens if I've got a number of people, hundreds or thousands of people in a room or a venue or a stadium? There's still a required interaction there for the content that you have on stage, either interaction for accessibility purposes or for translation purposes, or for use cases such as, well, I couldn't quite make it into that particular room because I'm subscribed to go into this breakout room, but I'd really like to know what's going on in that track and how do I engage with that content? Or I'd really like to subscribe for this room, but it's completely oversubscribed, it's packed, the doors are closed, I can't get in, I'm in the corridor. How do I know what's going on in that room? I've traveled all the way to this particular event, I'm really engaged in this content. So how do you not lose that audience member? How do you give them the value as an attendee? And this is something that we can solve as well with the technology that we're providing in Timbra that I'm going to show you today. And we're doing this for large conferences and events around the world, such as GTC that was run a couple of weeks ago in San Jose, such as GitHub Universe, Intel Foundry, reInvent, and many, many more. And worth saying that these are, some of the events that we're naming here, these are massive marquee events, like corporate events. But this is also used for town halls, for summits, for webinars, for focus groups, and for sports as well. What we'll show you today is really the sort of in-room capability, in venue physical capability, but it's used in tandem often with the broadcast capability. And really what you're seeing is the ability to consolidate all of these broadcast and enterprise grade use cases in a single technology platform, which is Timbra by CaptionHub. So as I mentioned today, we've got a very focused view on in-room and the AI summarization and in-room translation via the companion today. And this is what we'll jump into very, very shortly. So just some of the key features that Timbra offers. Firstly, CaptionHub is really a platform that was born at the convergence of media and localization. And so when we talk about media at CaptionHub, we're really referring to time-based media, to video and audio. And that brings with it a distinct number of complexities. Things like frame accuracy, things like in a real-time environment, not having the ability to edit, positioning of text on media that's already providing a lot of visual stimulation and information. Where do I provide and position those captions, if it is indeed text, in the best possible way so that my users have the best experience with the limited screen real estate that they have in front of them to consume the content that you want them to consume, but at the same time providing that captions translation overlay or providing the real-time transcription. There are lots of different ways to do this. And so what we've always been very proud in focusing on and staying very clearly within our swim lanes on is that translation, localization, and transcription specifically for media in a broadcast and enterprise setting. This historically has been done through hardware, through hardware encoders, and you'll often see at the back of a big event. I'm sure many of you are involved in deploying production at events. And at the back of a very large event, or even a broadcaster, you're going to have a broadcast operations suite or a control center with a lot of hardware. And the benefit that we are now bringing is that lots of this hardware can be replaced with very, very resilient, high accuracy, very interoperable software. And look, the story of cloud is not new. This has been around for a generation. But the industry in media, particularly, and events to a large degree, is really starting to now harness these technologies. And sometimes this means a mix of the hardware technologies and the software technologies, but it is increasingly moving into that, pure software space, which gives you, it removes that physicality. It means that you can have fewer monitors, fewer technical resources that are having to, might be encoding or sort of coding encoders on site in Unix. Those days are, increasingly behind us. And so what CaptionHub is doing is really surfacing in an easy way for anybody in the production team to take this technology, turn it on, deploy it in seconds, which is really important, but then bring the power of these things that are only really possible in the cloud because we're able to bring lots of different technologies together under the hood. True sentence level translation is a good example of that. We do all of the hard work on the transcription using speech recognition AI on the real-time media that comes through to create full sentences. We provide and build our own AI technology that sits over that essentially allows those sentences to be constructed in the correct grammatical way. And then we pass that through machine translation with turn-based application and passing it through the right machine translation as well, so that you're getting that true sentence level translation. And that's using multiple third-party technologies, but wrapped very intelligently in our architecture to ensure that those captions are being created with both the right grammatical consideration in English, but then in those translated languages, and then with the correct and appropriate context awareness of the timing of the media itself. And so there are lots of moving parts here to get right. And what we're doing in CaptionHub and in Timbra is abstracting that into a way that you can use it in your production environment in a way that's really easy and seamless and quick, and that you can turn on and deploy. We're just really aware that you've got this massive broadcast. You might be a sports broadcaster, broadcasting mission critical, multi-billion-dollar content around the world. It might be your corporate event that you are broadcasting around the world, with tens of thousands of people attending, paying thousands of dollars per ticket, and you are looking to give them the premium experience that they expect and that they do receive right across every touch point in your event. And having the touch points of the accessibility, them understanding and engaging with your content, either in their own language or better in English, in a more accessible way, so they can keep up with the content, so that they can join content at different touch points. These things are super, super important to ensure that you're getting that both the value for yourselves, but also providing that value for your customers, for your attendees, for those events. In a moment, I'm going to jump into the technology itself and show you how this works, how easy it is to set it up, to deploy it. Just a couple of other points. First of all, this is used, in production very heavily on a day-to-day basis by the world's leading brands across broadcast, across sports, across large events, internal corporate town hall events. It really is used for a number of use cases. So all of the things that hold for CaptionHub, our security and compliance, resiliency, high level A to Z availability, all of these things hold for Timbra, which is our real-time product. So let's jump into the product itself. So what I'll be doing today is running OBS in the background as our encoder. So what I'm going to do is basically mimic a live event, and I'll use OBS to broadcast a video that it would be, in my live event, I might be using OBS, I might be using an Epiphan, a Pearl Epiphan. I might, one of several encoders that I'll have at my event. And all I'm doing here is using OBS to distribute that video stream. And just to give you a little bit more context onto what this looks like, whereas our broadcast translation subtitling platform typically will take a HLS from a streaming service and then process that and then provide those captions back to the player via plugin or WebSocket or an API. What we're doing here with the in-room capability is something slightly different. We are taking further upstream here, we're taking the RTMP directly from the encoder and really biasing for the fastest possible processing and deployment of that text back. So we're not providing closed captions within the video frame itself, but giving you back that real-time transcript and translation. And because we're doing that, it means that we need to give it back to you in a different way. We're not giving you back to you in the video. And you don't really want that for an in-room capability anyway. You'd either want to have the captions on a confidence screen for the speakers or for the audience at a strategically placed position within the room, or on a companion device so that I, as an audience member, can tune into that on my device at the same time as, engaging with the content on the stage itself. So having that real-time transcript also gives us that benefit that where we can play around with the type of display and get that right. It also means that then you, as the customer and the events organizer, you're able to provision that in the right way. You can build your overlays in OBS. You can really start to sort of get very custom on how you display that on the in-room display. And then you can very easily, without any sort of download of external applications or authentication concerns, have anybody in your audience basically just tune into that in-room companion by scanning a QR code, by hitting a link, and I'll talk through some of those things in a second. So we're taking that RTMP from your encoder, you're running it through Timbra. This is something you'd set up in your own instance of CaptionHub. You can do it very quickly. And then you've got the various options. So we're going to go through this process now, and I'll show you how easy it is to set up as I talk you through those features. So back into OBS, very simply, what we're doing here is taking the stream settings from a project that I've set up in CaptionHub. And you can see those settings there. And I just pop them into OBS, and that just gives me my handshake.
I'm here to answer your questions about.
And so we're going to listen today to Jacob Keating from NASA talking about the International Space Station at the launch of Artemis 2. So this is a big launch. I have hundreds of people in the room. They're all very excited to hear Jacob. I have some people outside the room. They can't get into the room. I have some who are, can speak English, but Spanish is their native first language. So I'd really like to give my audience members the ability to hear or see this in Spanish, as well as the English members in the room. I'd like to give them the ability to see the text on screen as well, so that they can really keep up in this noisy, bustly room where there's visual distractions as well as audio distractions once Jacob is on stage. So I'm covering off lots of use cases here. So as you can see, I've got my video set up in OBS. I'm ready to go into production there. And I've got my project set up, which took me a few seconds inside of CaptionHub. So I'm just going to start captioning here. And CaptionHub will tell me very clearly here, just up in the top left, exactly what is happening. So as a control room operator, I've got a number of very clear visual indicators that tell me exactly what CaptionHub is doing, what Timbra is doing, and what I need to do as an operator, if anything, other than monitoring. So at the moment, Timbra is telling me that it's setting up the transcription service and the language model, which is great. So I know that it's actually doing something. It's spinning up some things in the background. And in a moment, what it will tell me is that it's able to then accept a stream from my encoder. So there we go. You can now start streaming. And my blue indicator has turned to gray. It says listening for data. And so if I jump back into OBS and start streaming to that endpoint, then you'll see that this indicator now turns green. My RTMP source turns green. Timbra receives that and turns green. And I'm now also getting a visual preview here, which is telling me exactly when that visual preview was received. I get that raw timestamp. I get that in UTC. So I've got if I'm running this control center remotely across time zones, then we're all working to UTC. So again, I've got a number of visual indicators: green for good on my RTMP, green for good on my Timbra. I'm receiving my stream down here. This all looks great. I'm very happy. I'm going to jump into my health monitor, and I can now see that in my health monitor, our transcript is being created. So this is in real time. The audio is being processed. It's being transcribed. We're applying any custom dictionaries to bias the AI to give you the best quality of output that's aware of your particular terminology. So in this case, it's NASA's, but in your case, it might be, you may be a technology company, a medical devices company, whatever that is, you'll have your own domain, your own lexicon of terminology, and you can put this into Timbra in a very easy way, and the AI will use this in a real-time basis and then apply that to create original captions. These are fully formed sentences with the correct grammatical structuring. That means when it gets passed into translation, the translation and machine translation is then giving the best possible result because it's getting fully formed sentences as the input. That's a really important part of the transcription, the translation process. And you can also see that I've got a bit rate analysis here as well. So again, another health indicator for my monitor in my control room, whether that's remote or a fully physical on-site control center. I have my bitrate analysis. I can see that the stream quality coming into CaptionHub is also consistent, which is great. So again, all things green, no issues detected. So from a production readiness perspective, I'm now in a good place. And let's talk about some of the ways and methods in which we can now give the text back to our audience. And just to mention as well, this is already configured to translate into Spanish. I could translate into several other languages here, but at the moment we're transcribing into English and then translating into Spanish. You can also show audio events if we need to as well. Okay, so let's take a look at the in-room display. So we're looking at the in-room display and then the in-room companion. The in-room display is the display that you will put onto a screen or multiple screens in your event, either in the room or in the stadium, but in the physical venue. This can be placed full screen. You have the ability to control a number of different options here in the in-room display itself. You also have a transcript widget, which is a JavaScript widget, which you can embed somewhere on a digital page. And as a JavaScript widget, you get much more control over things like the aesthetic, the CSS that you apply on top. So if you want to be more technical, more custom, then you have that option as well. Many of our customers like to use the in-room because it's readily deployable. I don't need any developer interaction whatsoever, and I can just press a few buttons, and then go here. And I can also, select multiple translation languages. So I'm going to just have a play around with some of with the aesthetics and the fonts here. And I can see my live preview down here. So I've got my real-time transcription. This is what somebody would see on the screen in the room. So my font size is great. Happy with that. I think I'm going to keep it at that size, maybe slightly bigger. And I'm going to reduce the size of that QR code because I know that I've got a very large screen in my event. So I don't need such a large QR code taking up too much of that screen estate. But I will put some helper text on that. Scan me for Spanish and an AI summary. I'm going to keep that as Calibre Web. And I will keep as English. But as you can see, I can also, if I wanted to, I could translate that for, if I had a major second language in the room, I could translate that and just have the translation rather than the English accessibility there as well. But for now, I'm going to have that as English. I've also got the ability to have something called a holding screen. And this holding screen will let me essentially put the QR code, and have that take up the entire screen. This is great for, your events, your pre-game, before your keynote comes on stage. And you really want people to engage with that QR code before your speaker starts. So, it's a bustly room. People are coming in with their coffees and their Starbucks, and they're talking before they're sitting down and finding their seats, and the keynote's coming on stage. And you've got that energy in the room. You just want those QR codes to be really obvious and for people to engage with those. So you can have that automatic holding screen or the manual holding screen. If I select automatic here, what will happen is if I'm not speaking at the start of an event, it will automatically put the holding screen there. And when my keynote starts talking, then it will turn into the transcript. So I'm quite happy with all of that, with that screen. And now, as a producer, all I need to do is take that in-room display, which, if I click on this button here, is a completely separate browser tab from this link. And I can just put that onto screen X at the back of the room or the front of the room, wherever that screen happens to be. So very easy to deploy that with that link and with that browser. Now let's just go back to this holding screen momentarily. Before I show you what this looks like on screen, if you do have your device with you, if you have your iPhone or your Android phone or a tablet with you right now with a camera, then please do scan this QR code. And what you'll get when you scan this QR code, I'll do this here, is you'll get directed immediately to a browser. And in that browser, you will get the ability to tune in directly to this event. Now, again, this could be, you might be sitting in your seat and you've just joined, you've come into the event a few minutes late, or you had a sidebar with a colleague and you had to sort of disengage from the keynote. Or you missed a part of the keynote that got very technical and you couldn't quite follow along in English, but you'd like to follow along in Spanish. So you're either looking for a translation or you're looking for a summary. You might be in the room, you might be outside of the room, lots of different bases that this can cover, which is really cool. And so now that you've scanned that, really what you'll get is what I'm about to show you on screen, which is this real-time transcript. You can have that in Spanish, like so, but you can also have the capture. So at the bottom of the screen, it's telling me what's happened in the last few minutes. Jacob Keating has discussed the ISS as humanity's first permanent home in space. The station weighs 900,000 pounds, took over 40 rocket launches to assemble in orbit. So some really cool information that's been summarized in single line bullets for me and for my audience, which is fantastic. That's really helpful. So, that's very easy to distribute to your audience. You can do this digitally, but also if you set this project up well before your event, then you have the ability to download the collateral as the image files. And those source image files, like any image files, you can print those, you can print them onto podiums, or you can distribute them via, email, social. You've got all of those options at your fingertips. You also have the ability here, as I said, to take that transcript widget or a webinar widget as an iframe or a JavaScript snippet and put those into different places. So aside from the in-room, the companion virtual, the companion app, also worth mentioning that there are these different methods to surface and generate this text and give that back to your audience for them to consume wherever they happen to be. So hopefully that's been of help. I'm going to hit stop captioning here. I'm finishing my event, and as easy as it was to commission and start that project and spin it up, it's very easy to stop this as well. You can see that's now deducted 15 minutes from my balance, and that's it. We've had real-time captions. We've had an in-room companion. It was all set up in seconds, took us seconds to turn off the stream, and all of those settings are saved for the next event that I do. And many of our customers will do this. They'll come to us for one event, they'll configure everything, and then it's just very, very easy for them to come back and configure new events for each event that they run. So that's bringing us almost to the top of the, or to the bottom of the hour, rather. And I would happily take any questions that I can see coming through here, which I have, which is great. So thank you for your time so far. If you'd like to stick around, ask any questions, please do. Otherwise, I'll just answer the questions that have already been put into the Q&A. So I've answered a few of these already. Let's jump into how does Timbra handle multiple speakers? Well, it does handle multiple speakers. You can see here that we have all of the industry standards. So double chevrons is the typical way of having multiple speakers identified in the real-time transcription. So you can have that with line breaks, without, or with colors or speaker numbers. There is a limit to the number of languages, but we haven't ever had a customer reach that limit. So the limit of the number of translatable languages or translations is around 250 different languages simultaneously. And the only limitation there is quite literally the number of languages that are translated by our machine translation providers that we have integrated. So as I say, it's just over 250, but the most any customer has ever really done is around 50 in a real-time environment. How are the AI summaries generated? Is it automatic, or do I have to do something to turn it on? That's a great question. So the AI summary, you can either generate that manually at given points, or you can generate it automatically. So I can hit regenerate summary now, and that's just going to generate that manually for my audience. Or I can have that generate automatically on every few minutes. I can also put in an event description and different speakers, and that will give a little bit more bias and prompt context to my summarization. But that's a great question. Thank you. Can attendees choose which language they view in, or do I control which ones are available? Also a great question. So you as the controller, as the administrator or the producer, you'll set up the which languages are available, and then it's then down to your audience members to select the language they would like to read in and follow along in. So it's really that simple. Great. I think those are all the questions. If you do have further questions, then I had the summary was not in Spanish on my phone, whilst the transcript was. That's a great question. That's currently on our product roadmap and something that we're very much aware of. So thanks for raising that. It's something that we have seen requests for very recently. So we're really pleased that our international audiences and multilingual audiences are really starting to see value in the AI summarization as well. Great, there's no more questions, so we are coming to the end, and I want to be mindful of the time. I'm sure you all have busy afternoons and evenings ahead of you. If you would like to know more, if you would like to try CaptionHub and Timbra at your next event, please just get in touch with us. We'd be really happy to set up a sandbox with some free per minute credits there, so you can trial that and we can take it from there. But for today, thanks very much and see you next time.